To the man now who has so much money, he's decided to give $200 billion of it away. Talking about Bill Gates, who's announced plans to spend as much as $200 billion of his fortune on improving health and education services across Africa. Mr. Gates made the announcement during an address at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa on Monday. He said that unleashing human potential by improving health and education should put every country in Africa on a path to prosperity. He's also urged the continent's young innovators to think about how to use artificial intelligence to improve healthcare. Last month, the 69-year-old announced that he would give away 99% of his vast fortune by 2045, by when the Gates Foundation plans to end its operations. Writing in blog posts last month, he said that people will say a lot of things about him when he dies, but he is determined that he died rich will not be one of them. Joining us now is international developmental analyst Dr. Aderonke Kujore. She joins us from Washington, D.C. Thank you, Dr. Kujore, for joining us on the program.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to get your thoughts before we go into the conversation proper, what Bill Gates said about himself. He says people will say a lot of things about him when he dies, but he's determined that he died rich will not be one of them. Giving away $200 billion, that doesn't mean that Bill Gates will be poor, does it?
No, it doesn't mean that he will be poor. Obviously, he has more than enough to live and live until his death. I think it is actually a pretty exciting announcement that he made. I think that it is hopefully a call to other wealthy individuals around the world, whether it's within Africa or outside of Africa, that this might be an interesting way to spend the rest of their lives, or an interesting way to allocate the rest of their funds. I think what it shows us is he's seen enough wealth, and he's also seen enough poverty across the world that he has decided that, it's better for him to, give it away than take it with him. I think my mother used to say, live simply so that others can simply live. And for me, this is basically a show of the fact that he understands the state of things within Africa, and he would rather ensure that some people get a chance at a better life than die with all of that wealth.
So the good news is much of that money is coming to Africa, but it's not coming to the governments. The money has not been attributed to any of the governments in Africa, but to projects on the continent. From your perspective, what sectors do you think would be needing it the most?
So there are a few. I would say that definitely education. Until we have a populace that has the basics in education, I think we will continue to struggle. So it would be nice to see a lot of those funds go into education. Healthcare is another area that I think he has shown his interest in over time, that I think is important for us to see some of those funds go into across Africa. I think it's, when you look at the state of primary health care across the continent, there's definitely a lot of room for, centers and staff and things like that across the continent. The third thing I would say that is probably going to be long lasting is ensuring accessibility to energy and internet infrastructure. We still have too many dark spots across the continent that I think will benefit significantly from being able to basically communicate across across the globe, or, communicate with our largest cities. So those will be three big areas, but then there's also things like, agriculture or entrepreneurial ventures that could benefit from it. But I will start with education, health, and infrastructure across the country from an energy perspective and also from an internet perspective.
We already know that Bill Gates is one of the biggest philanthropists of our time, but there are times when even aid does seem to be a bribe, I will say, to certain individuals and to certain organizations and countries. Do you think that's a likelihood here for Mr. Gates, what he will gain, as he gives away the bulk of his wealth?
I think sometimes I think the backlash that he gets is somewhat unfair. He's an individual first before anything, and so as individuals, we always have our personal opinions or preferences in terms of where what happens in the world, whether or not he has money. Um, but I think what really sits well for me with what he's decided to do is he's actually attributed 99%, which is record breaking if you look back at all of the wealthy individuals that we've seen and what percentages of their wealth they donate in their lifetime or after. To date, I don't believe we've seen anyone donate at this magnitude. And I think this magnitude speaks to the fact that he's truly altruistic and is looking to do as much good as he can with all that he has at this point. Yeah.
Is that something is that a character that's acquired, when you become that wealthy, that you become more altruistic, you become very unselfish with your wealth and you want to do a lot of good? Or is that just because of the kind of person that he is?
So I actually believe it's the kind of person that he is. There's a lot of research that talks about the fact that if you're not able to give or you're not able to serve with little, it actually becomes more difficult to do it when you have more. I think many times when people become wealthy, it is more publicly seen or felt or known. But it's one of those things that if you just don't have things like empathy for the person beside you, you could be driving, a Porsche and not even see that there's a little child begging for a piece of bread beside you. So, when you think about, how wealthy people, spend their money or whether or not they're altruistic, I don't believe it's something that is, that every wealthy person acquires. I think it's something that is taught from childhood. People, parents teaching their children to, share a biscuit or something that's small. And that continues to develop over a lifetime to the point where you still continue to have empathy for people around you. And I think that's what's happening here. He has been exposed enough to some of the pain and suffering and poverty in different areas of Africa and has decided that, okay, this is where his funds will go. We have a lot of wealthy people that are not giving half as much of, in terms of percentages of their wealth to these kinds of efforts. Some even don't give anything at all. Sometimes they give just to shut the world up and make sure that people aren't talking about them in a negative light. But I think this is the first of its kind, and it's definitely commendable.
And on a lighter note, Dr. Kujore, can we all be as rich as Bill Gates?
Wouldn't we all like to be as rich as Bill Gates? Unfortunately, that's not going to happen, and I think it's only because of simple reasons. There are things that make people wealthy that many people just don't have. Whether it's things like your mindset or the ability to sacrifice something today for a future investment, savings, investing, not spending all you have. Those are oftentimes skills that the average person finds very difficult. I was looking at the amount that that he's going to be donating, and I said, if you split that across every single individual in Africa, I think we're about 1.5 billion or something. Anyway, if you split that across each and every one of us, maybe we'll all get, 200,000 naira, something of that sort. And I can bet you the majority will blow it, right? Because if you don't have those skills in terms of being able to save or invest or grow what you have, you can't be wealthy. It's just, it's not rocket science. And so we can't all be, but we hope that those who have acquired some wealth, any kind of wealth, will, find it in their hearts to find ways to use that leverage to make our continent a better one. We have a lot of wealthy people on the continent, and we hope that this is sort of a good example that inspires others to follow suit and make sure that we continue to lift the country out of its current state.
Dr. Aderonke Kujore, thank you again for teaching us. Well, we can be wealthy, if we do what Bill Gates is doing. Well, not giving up or giving out all of our wealth, but of course, making the right investments. Thank you for joining us on the program.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
A quick stop.